The F1 Focus Podcast with Welman and Hendrik Verwoerd.
Welcome to the Formula One Focus. Last week, Hendrik and I had a long chat about lots of things that happened, and then with the Christian Horner news, it sort of, it fell by the wayside. Sorry for that, Hendrik, but welcome back, and let's see if we can do better this week.
Not at all. Yeah, I'm sure we will be able to do better because I think we know a little bit more now about what the Christian Horner situation is and what led to it than what we did. When we normally record, that news broke literally an hour later, or something like that. So it was very difficult at short notice to do a proper analysis. And maybe give some informed speculation.
Yeah, but which we're going to try to do. Let's do two sides to this Christian Horner story. Number one, what happened, and number two, what's going to happen. So let's start with what happened. What are you hearing? Why was this man fired? I sort of talked about it last week, and we sort of it's impossible. 20 years of success, all those titles, constructor titles, drivers' titles, and yet 2 days after the British Grand Prix, out on his ear, and it caught everybody by surprise, including Christian Horner. Seems like.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he was only informed on the Tuesday. He was informed on the Tuesday. He was called to a hotel somewhere in London, I think, and he was informed of the decision. And then the announcement was made on the Wednesday morning. So after the British Grand Prix. Well, okay. So basically, what happened was that Red Bull, the mother company, let's call it the mother company, Red Bull, decided that they wanted to relieve Christian Horner of his operational role at Red Bull Racing. In other words, at the Formula One team. Now that's quite a key term because he also holds a number of positions in other companies inside the Red Bull group, including Red Bull Performance or Power Units, rather. In other words, the company that is going to build the engines in conjunction with Ford. Red Bull Technology, of course, as well. And there are a number of other, I think there are 6 companies in total within let's say, the Formula One ambit of the Red Bull group. And he's a director in all of them. He's basically in charge of all of those companies. So the Formula One team was only the one role that obviously had the highest profile. And what they did do was they relieved him of his operational position as the team principal of the Formula One team. That means that he's still an employee of Red Bull, and that means obviously that if they wanted, they are. What the speculation is that they are at the moment busy with the negotiations for a severance package, which can run into tens of millions of dollars because his contract at the moment with Red Bull is running until 2030. So there's still quite a while to go, and they will have to buy him out of that. So that was the decision, that they would relieve him of his team principal role, basically, at the Formula One team. He's still going to continue for the time being until they come to an agreement about the payout. He's still going to be an employee of the Red Bull company, group. And immediately they announced that Laurent Mekies, the team principal of Racing Bulls, will take over his role as team principal. And there was a planned film day at Silverstone after the British Grand Prix for Red Bull, and immediately on that Wednesday. And Laurent Mekies was immediately posted there, and he started his work there on that day. Already, what is interesting, the photographs that were taken, an indication of how quickly things happened was that Mekies was only dressed in a white shirt. He didn't even have Red Bull branded clothing, and obviously he couldn't go there with his Racing Bull, even if it's in the same cap. But so things really happened very quickly. The one big question, of course, is why, and Red Bull never gave any reasons. Up to where we are speaking now, they have not officially given any reasons for the decision. So it's all up to speculation and informed speculation amongst the Formula One media in various forms. Seem to think that it obviously is a combination of factors. Something like this normally doesn't happen because of one single reason, unless unless there's criminality involved. That could be a sufficient reason. But in this case, obviously, there's nothing even remotely like that. So that must have been a combination of reasons. So what the thinking is in Formula One circles is that things sort of started to go sour for him and the internal relations, and we have followed this on this podcast ever since then. 18 months ago, when the whole thing surfaced that inappropriate conduct between him or from his side towards a female employee. That whole thing, we don't have to go into all the details, but that sort of started the ball rolling. And we'll remember shortly, or in that time, Jos Verstappen, Max's father, was very vocal about the thing that, or his opinion that Christian Horner should leave because, and on various occasions, he said almost word for word that as long as Horner is there, they will not perform well, or the team will explode, or something like that. So that I think the consensus is that things really started to go wrong for him there. Because let's not forget, before that, the team was performing absolutely well, brilliantly, and they were competitive, and they were in with a chance of the championship, and so on. So that's where it started. And then, things started to develop with senior figures leaving the team, including obviously Adrian Newey and Jonathan Wheatley and a few other senior guys left the team. And so, things really started to not look good for him in his role as the CEO of that company. And then clearly also from the middle of last season, the performance of especially the second car started to fall down really to play a minor and a very small role in the championship. So the on-track performance also obviously started to go down. They then, fortunately for them, Max could retain his championship for the drivers' title, but obviously in the constructors' championship they didn't succeed. They were beaten by McLaren. So that's also another black mark against the CEO of the company. And that whole situation continued this year. The car not competitive. They tried different drivers up to now. None of the two, Liam Lawson or Yuki Tsunoda, could actually make any progress with that second car. And we have also discussed that whole situation that, the team as a whole, the design of the car and the development of the RB21 went in a direction of only benefiting Max Verstappen. And therefore sort of causes the team to fight with one hand tied behind the back. And that also, from the CEO's point of view, is not a good idea, not a good development strategy. I've made that point on a number of occasions. So it seems that all of this, led to the fact that he lost his support. And we must also remember that, things like sacking a CEO normally has got to do with a power struggle in any company. And we know that when things started to go wrong 18 months ago, that Horner had the support of one faction on the board, let's say, or in the senior members of the company. Mostly he had the support of the Thai side, the Thailand side, and the Austrian side, along with the Verstappen camp, was basically his opposition, and that whole power struggle seemed to continue throughout until shortly before this decision made. And it appears, again, this is what is kind of consensus inside Formula One circles, that Christian had lost the support of the Thai side, of the Uvinja camp. And therefore, he was then, he didn't have any support on the board level, and therefore the decision was then made that they should get rid of him, at least in this position as a team principal. So that, I think, all of that makes a lot of sense. I think if you look back now, those things all make a lot of sense as building blocks towards the decision that came seemingly out of the blue last week. Nobody saw it coming, as you mentioned, but if we all look back and we analyze it in such a way, that was clearly a path that was going to end up with him losing his position. That's the situation as I see it at this point.
Couple of questions there. Laurent Mekies was initially announced as team principal. He was also later announced as CEO.
Yeah.
Which they sort of neglected to do. Yes. So the question I'm asking you is he now sort of then still in charge of the powertrains division and the Red Bull Technologies, or is he simply being paid a salary to do nothing?
Christian.
Yeah.
Christian would still hold those positions. Yeah. But
Okay.
that's on paper. I mean, in reality, what is probably happening is he's sitting at home, thinking about what he's going to do with all the millions that he's going to get as a payout,
Yeah.
and maybe thinking about what his next step is going to be. But in on paper, he would still hold those positions until replacements are found or are appointed by the board, and until they have come to an agreement on the severance situation.
Yeah. Interesting thing. I saw that, I can't remember the name exactly, but the Austrian shareholders held 49%, and the Thai shareholders held 49%, with the son of the regional Thai founder holding the controlling 2%. But he transferred that 2% into a trust, which means he couldn't swing the vote anymore. And you talked about a power struggle after Dieter Masch's death in 2022. Maybe that was the straw that broke the camel's back, because now suddenly they didn't need that 2% anymore. They could make the decision.
Well, then they would have still had to agree with it. If you have 49 and 49%, and the 2% somewhere else, they still needed to agree on the situation. I'm not strong on corporate governance. So, whether that was the case or not, the fact is the decision was made, and there was no safety net for him, that he could fall back on. So clearly that was the situation, and whoever voted for, clearly they must have agreed with it. Otherwise, somebody would have resigned by now.
Yeah.
So obviously that was the situation. He would have lost that power struggle.
Now, the other power struggle is, of course, between him and Helmut Marko, and Helmut Marko is aligned with the Verstappens. But now, talking about the Verstappens, very, very strong rumors of Max flying to Sardinia, where Toto's yacht was on the island, and lots of rumors floating around that the Mercedes deal is sort of a done deal. And so regardless of what Red Bull did with Christian Horner, Max is on his merry way. I mean, what do you think? What do you know about that?
I would still be very surprised if he actually does join Mercedes or even any other team, for 2026. Clearly, it's not going to happen for this year, but for 2026 on, I'm going to be very surprised because of all the uncertainties that's going to, at this point, are hanging over the 2026 situation for all the teams. Nobody knows who's going to come out on top, and it will probably take half a season next year to have a clear picture of who's got some advantage or not. So it would be I would also be very surprised if Toto has always been a big fan of Max. And I think clearly he's still kicking himself that he didn't offer him a full race drive, but I don't think he could when Max was became available. It was 2015, I think. I'm not sure that Max, Toto, and Jos are going to get along so well as they seem to be at the moment. If Mercedes is not, absolutely completely dominant, because Jos seems to be the one that currently keeps on pushing Red Bull, he's been the one that's been really pushing and making all kinds of public announcements and stuff, or pro-announcements. Jos, I think, is a problematic situation for any other team. Red Bull, they tolerated him because they had Max. I'm not sure that any other team is going to be willing to do that. I'm pretty sure that somebody like Zach Brown would not stand for something like that. At McLaren. Not that McLaren is an option for him, but what I'm saying is that I'm going to find it very difficult to believe that anybody else would stand for that sort of
tolerated.
Interference of somebody who's not a member of the team or a paid employee or anything. So again, I'm not going to say it's not going to happen. I would be very surprised if it does. Because that would obviously then have an impact on whoever he replaces, and the smart money, according to the speculation at Mercedes, to lose the seat there is George Russell, and where would he go? Who's going to take him?
Straight swap.
Is he going to be willing to go into the environment that is now left at Red Bull? Who knows how long Helmut is going to be there, just as an aside, because he's also opening one or two doors for a successor for him. Sebastian Vettel has been mentioned in that regard. So lots of uncertainties there. So Max, that is one of the other, just continue on that theme. One of the other reasons that is being speculated about for the decision to get rid of Christian is exactly this: the uncertainty about the future of Max, and the reasoning at this point is that they probably decided to get rid of him because in that way Red Bull can kind of guarantee that Max would stay.
Well, yeah.
Well, that without Horner there, the Verstappen camp would be much happier to stay where they are at the moment. So that could well be. I don't know anything.
The stories I'm hearing is that Mercedes engine the next year is going to be the engine to beat. They look very good, and we don't know. Yeah.
We don't know that. And let's not forget also that in the world of Formula One, interested parties use the media to their benefit. Also, they plant stories, they plant rumors to their benefit, just as the media uses their contact in Formula One for their benefit. So it could well be that somebody has been planting stories about Mercedes and the engine is doing so well. And the reasoning basically is that because Mercedes did so well when the hybrid turbo era came in. Now that we're going to have an engine formula without the MGK heat, we're going to, Mercedes would be in the best position to do that. I mean, that's not a given necessarily.
I'm just thinking maybe
going to be competitive, but I'm not saying that they're going to be as. There's no guarantee that they will be as competitive or as dominant as they were in the previous era.
I'm just thinking maybe Toto's, maybe gave him a bit of a sneak preview, something like that. But that's pure speculation. That's what I'm getting at.
Well, that could well be. I mean, that is the way that they got the hold of Lewis Hamilton initially. To get him away from McLaren, Niki Lauda and Toto Wolff gave him a very good indication of their progress and their expectations of their competitiveness in the turbo hybrid era, and that is what got Hamilton into Mercedes. That was the decision. He obviously had to endure 2013 before 2014 came around. But yeah, it could well be that they are giving him that sort of tour into the future, just like Aston Martin did with Adrian Newey, giving him a tour or a vision or something that they can get their teeth into, and for that matter for Fernando Alonso as well, while they got him Aston Martin. So clearly that is the way to do it. The strategy to follow is to get the driver to buy into your future vision, just like with Sainz at Williams. James Vowles was able to give him enough of a solid indication of where they see the team going and how they're going to progress, and that's what got Sainz to sign the contract. So yeah, that is the strategy that a team will follow. And who am I to say that Mercedes is not doing that with Max? Again, I'll just be very surprised if they succeed to get him there for 2026.
On the subject of his displacement, Laurent Mekies, he's moving up from Racing Bulls to Red Bull, and then obviously Alain Permain, who was fired unceremoniously from Alpine, is now taking over at Racing Bulls. What's your thinking about those two? Are they the right people?
I think obviously, within the Red Bull camp, that would be the logical way to do it. Laurent Mekies is highly regarded, very highly regarded. I mean, he's got decades of experience and also in management. There's no reason to think that he would not succeed at Red Bull. Alain Permain, maybe not so much on a management level, but as a senior technician for many years, he would have been exposed enough to what it takes to be a team principal or play that role. So yeah, I mean, I'm not going to say that I can think of anybody else because I can't think of anybody else, but it's logical for me that Red Bull would decide to promote from within, because they needed to do it quickly. They couldn't really go and fish outside, because whoever they would want from outside would have had to wait 6 months or even a year maybe on gardening leave.
Yeah, true.
So they needed somebody, and they needed somebody quickly, and these two seem to be the best suited to within that group for those positions. And their results are going to be the litmus test, isn't it? For the next half of the season.
Yeah, that's almost a poisoned chalice, if you ask me. But yeah, that's not for us to decide. Talking about Christian Horner, we said this is what happened. So what's going to happen now? He said he's going to sit at home, probably count his millions. But very strong rumors about him maybe ending up at Alpine. He wants a bit of a Toto Wolff story, fairy tale. He was very well compensated, but he didn't end up with shareholding like Toto did. He wants maybe some form of a shareholding, maybe build something again, but where he actually becomes an owner, like Adrian Newey does it at Aston Martin, and obviously the usual Ferrari rumors, which I can discount. I'll discount that right from the offset. But the Alpine thing, I'm not sure. I think it's an option. You don't necessarily agree with me.
I can't see a current team in its current form actually taking him on. I think Christian Horner is too used to and too focused on being fully in charge. He was in charge not only of the Formula One team, as I said, but of in every other position that he held. He was the guy, and he was. I mean, he was even playing a role in on the marketing side of Racing Bulls. Trying to get sponsors and putting sponsors in place for them and that sort of thing. So on the marketing side, so he wanted to have a finger in all pies that he could get his fingers into. And I can't see any other team really, tolerating that sort of situation. Alpine, Flavio is there. Apparently they are good mates, but do you think that they can be good colleagues? Can you see Flavio and Christian working together? Two strong-headed characters. I'm not so sure about that. And the other factor, of course, I think at Alpine is that they're going to run Mercedes engines. Which means that Christian Horner and Toto Wolff will have to work together. And the history between the two of them, I'm not so sure about that. They will be a customer team, and and Christian will probably not be able to dictate too much. But if things don't happen the way that he wants at Alpine, if he goes there, he will have to deal with Toto as far as the engine is concerned. So I can't see that happening. The only way I can actually see it happening, and specifically with Alpine, I know that's the option that you favor, is if Otmar Zafnauer's plans go ahead, and he actually goes ahead and buys the team. And I could then see Zafnauer and Christian Horner maybe working together, on that team. But that would mean that the team would be a standalone operation in the sense that it's not part of a larger group. I think for Christian Horner to go to another team where he's again part of, or where he's again an employee, under the mercy of boards that can decide to fire him, within a day. I'm not sure that he, from his point of view, would be willing to risk that again. So the only way I can see him, getting back into Formula One in a senior management, team principal type situation, is if he can, perhaps help to buy into a team.
Yeah,
but $1 billion at the moment.
Well,
at least.
Here's my speculation, my scenario. They sold 24% to the, Ryan Reynolds, that American actor consortium.
Yeah.
So they're open to selling. We saw Luca De Maio now leaving Renault. He was sort of the driving force behind the Formula One team. He's the one who changed the name to Alpine. He's the one who's, fired left, right, and center and the likes. He's no longer there. We don't know who's going to take over. Flavio Briatore is 75 years old. He's not going to stick around forever, although Helmut Marko seems to be able to stick around forever. The point I'm saying is Christian Horner will inevitably have to serve some sort of gardening leave, maybe 2-3 years, even a longer time. It depends how much money he's going to be paid out. I suppose, let's say a year. Gives time for Flavio to sort of, get things in order. Christian can come in as a shell. They'll probably buy into the team somehow. Like you said, he's going to have mega millions. It's quite it's a possibility. He doesn't have to buy the entire team, but he can buy a shareholder in it and then become the new sort of team principal. That's what I'm seeing it's going. It's going to be rebranded from Alpine, maybe Horner Racing or something like that. That's what I think that to me, he's not going to walk away from Formula One. He's too young for it. It's only 51. I mean, and there's 20 years of success behind him. He's not going to sit at home and, twiddle his fingers.
Well, maybe he can get involved in, I don't know, in horse racing or something like that.
Yeah, true. You're right. Or farming like Jeremy Clarkson.
Yeah. Or maybe he could join the Ferrari sailing team or something like that.
Yeah,
who knows? I don't know. Who knows? All I'm saying is that, look, Alpine is probably the possibility that has the strongest chance of actually happening. for the reasons that you've mentioned, but I think on condition that the team gets sold. I cannot see him, joining Alpine, even if, I cannot see him joining the team if the team is still part of the larger organization.
Yeah, I think it's a longer term thing. Yeah, I agree with you.
So I think what he's probably going to do is going to, take a year off, take a sabbatical, and check out all kinds of opportunities. Ross Brawn came back after a year. So it's quite possible that that opportunities could open up once he has the chance to settle down. I think there's also the reputational thing that one has to take into account. That whole the scandal that he was involved with in at the beginning of last year, that has not been resolved outside of Red Bull. It was obviously he was given the verdict that he was not involved, that he was innocent by 2 investigations inside Red Bull. I'm not sure that another company would be too keen on taking on the possibility of that whole situation resurfacing. I have maintained that I think we have not seen the end of that. If that resurfaces, that would be a reputational risk for whoever else he's involved in. So, there's all kinds of things that would play a role in this situation.
If Flavio Briatore can make a comeback in Formula One, anybody can make a comeback in Formula One, if you ask me. I mean, that guy is going to check it past.
Formula One, I think in Formula One, Flavio made a comeback after many years, after like 15 years or something like that. So,
but he was banned for life, wasn't he? I mean, he just still managed to,
he was banned for life, and he got off on a technicality.
That's true.
Yeah, but also remember that Flavio is not an employee.
He's a consultant.
He doesn't have the kind of position where a company can suffer from reputational damage because of Flavio. He's just as a consultant, basically.
Let's just talk about some of Mohammed bin Sulayem's latest shenanigans or antics or whatever you want to call it. Still going on about V8s making a comeback in 2029, which I still find improbable. And also talking about a 12th team, maybe a Chinese team, maybe Christian Horner can buy into that 12th team. You never know.
Well, if bin Sulayem gets his way, then that team would be based in China. I'm not sure that Christian and his lovely wife, his ex-Spice Girl wife, and their beautiful children would like to move over to China. I'm not so sure about that.
True.
But anyway, so bin Sulayem, obviously, what we must need, from here on basically must always keep in mind is that it's election year. And bin Sulayem is not only the incumbent, but he's got a serious rival as a potential, rival for his presidency in Turmoil. Turmoil announced his candidacy on the weekend of the British Grand Prix, and he's a serious candidate. He's not just somebody like Carlos Sainz Sr. who said that he was thinking about it. Turmoil has actually announced his candidature, and he's currently, on a campaign trial, an election campaign. So everything that either one of them or the people inside their camp would say from here on until the election in November must be seen in that light. So clearly, bin Sulayem is going to play some cards where he would like to that he would know that has or can get a lot of support. And one of the ideas that is still floating around in Formula One, earlier it was a return of V10s powered, with sustainable fuel. And a very small electric component, no turbocharger, and that sort of thing. And that was kind of, kicked down the road, I think. But he is now resurfaced with the idea. He said it could be a V8. It doesn't have to be a V10. It could be a V8. He says it doesn't have to be, a 3-liter V10. It can be we can go back to the 2.4-liter V8 if we want to. And his reasoning is, and I've got to say, I think there's merit in that. His reasoning is that not one of the current suppliers, basically has a V10 engine for their road cars, but all of them have got V8s. it wouldn't be a big jump for them, for any of them, to develop a V8 Formula One engine, and also it would be much cheaper than the current engine because it would have a very small electric component, a 10% electric component instead of a 50% electronic component. And it would be lighter. That is what everybody wants. They could shave 80 kilograms off the current weight of the engine, which would be a huge, I think, advantage to the sport, to get much lighter and more nimble cars than what we have at the moment. Smaller, lighter, more nimble, much more, much easier to drive, and I think the drivers would enjoy that much more. So he's saying, we need to look at that. The question is only when. The current, obviously, the new dispensation comes in next year, and it's planned for 5 years. So 26, 27, 28, 29, and 30. Then they need to start looking at the replacement of that from 31 onwards. He said maybe 29 if they can all agree, but if not, then they wait for the next cycle. So all of that, I think it makes a lot of sense because you lose the turbocharger, then you'll get some noise back. So and a V8, that can rev to, I don't know, 15 or 18,000 RPM. We can have some really good return. But it's our old folks that we remember the days of the V8s and the V10s, the screaming engines. The current generation of Formula One fans, and a large portion of the current generation of Formula One fans, don't even remember that. They were never exposed to that. So what we have at the moment is what they know. So there is no big, I think, appetite in the fan base necessarily for that. But the old guard would still like to come back, and maybe they think that they can turn the new generation around to start enjoying that. There's an argument also that why do you want the noisy cars back? Because these days it's families that go to Grand Prix races, and families with children, and do you want to expose them to that kind of noise? I remember how noisy it was. I used to go to the events where it was so loud. And it is it's a visceral experience. It is unbelievable. But for children, small children. Anyway, so that is, I think, part of the whole thing, and also part of this whole campaign thing for Ben Sulayem. He would like to. I think he's laying the groundwork to open up the possibility of a 12th team joining the grid. Not necessarily soon, but at some point in the near future. Again, something that I've always maintained, that we need 12 teams, we need 24 cars. In fact, I think we need 13 teams. We need to go back to 26 cars that we used to have. There's no reason why we can't do it. Yeah, some infrastructure will need to be changed, more pits will have to be built, but I mean, come on. So yes, he's making the noise, but what he's saying is that his preference is that that team would come from China. Because he reckons that the biggest potential for development for Formula One is in China, and China only has the one race. They should have more, and they should ideally have a Chinese team as well. So you can open up the Chinese market. If you can already see how strong Formula One is, but relative to the entire population of China, it is minuscule. So if you have another team that comes from China, you can have one or two more races in China. From a Formula One point of view, development point of view, that certainly makes sense. I don't want to buy from that. I don't want to buy in from that point of view, but I do want to buy in from the fact that we need to have more teams.
Lastly, China also lost their driver last year. He's now a reserve driver for Ferrari. Cadillac is sort of, playing cat and mouse games with everybody about announcing the new drivers. Joe Gonyu is one of the drivers in the running, apparently, or was. I'm not sure if he's anymore. Now, very strong rumors that Sergio Perez has, in fact, been signed, and an announcement will be made after the Hungarian Grand Prix. And then the open question, who else will it be? Will it be Bottas? Will it be Mick Schumacher? Who else? What are you hearing about that, just in closing?
Well, it's also part of the whole, how do you describe it? It's not pulling wool over people's faces, but it's part of this whole murky. If you mention one name, then it means that you put pressure on somebody else, and you are negotiating for a seat where you are going to try and not necessarily pay the guy what he wants, but you want to pay what you want to pay him, and it's all part of negotiation and that sort of thing. I think Checo has been a favorite as a potential Cadillac driver for a long time now. I have, in fact, I think on this broadcast predicted at the beginning of the season that this year we're going to see the announcement of Checo as a Cadillac driver, and I wouldn't be surprised if that happens, because it makes a lot of sense from a number of viewpoints. Not only the Mexican point of view, because Mexico and America and North America, the sponsorship that can come along and that sort of stuff. And he's a good. I mean, there's nothing wrong with him as a driver. He just couldn't make the Red Bull work, but he's a proven Formula One Grand Prix winner. So as a driver, he would make a lot of sense. Then I would suspect that they would probably get somebody younger in there. I'm not sure that they would necessarily want to have two experienced Formula One drivers. I suspect what they want is probably one that could give them direction, and another one, maybe an American driver that they could build up, and from an American point of view, that would make a lot of sense too. But Dan Taurus, who's the guy in charge of the company who's going to, who owns the team, was interviewed by, I think it was Sky Sports earlier this week, and he's basically saying that there's such a wide variety and such a long list of potential drivers that he says that he's amazed at the high level and of the drivers that are available, the quality of the drivers that are available. There's lots of things, he says, that's going on behind the scenes. So he was asked, can you announce the drivers? He said no, they can't do that because they're still negotiating. And what I suspect they're going to do, because they will also, it plays into their hands that there's such a lot of speculation going on, because that obviously raises the profile and the media presence. So I'm not surprised that they're going to ride this horse for a while and see how much interest they can generate, and then make a huge announcement and then announce both drivers. I can't see them actually making just an announcement of one driver, unless there's a specific need for them from a commercial point of view to announce, let's say, Checo. And still keep on negotiating for the second seat and make a second announcement. But, that's all marketing. All of that has got to do with marketing. So it's going to be a marketing decision when and how they're going to announce the driver line. They will have to do it pretty soon. I mean, I think by December, at least they will have to do it, because then you've got to get your entry in at the FIA for next season.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to speculate about that, and Valtteri, leaving the breadcrumbs by pointing to a seat at the in a Cadillac vehicle. That looks like a nice seat. Oh, there's two seats available. Yeah, that sort of thing. It's all part of the game. Yeah. I love it. It's all part of the game. Yeah. So we must just understand that.
Luckily, next week is next weekend, not this weekend. Next weekend we have a race again, the Belgian Grand Prix. I can't wait. It's been 3 weeks, unusually long. We've been getting used to triple headers and double headers, and now suddenly there's a 3 week sort of in between, and then August.
Then a full week break,
also coming up as well. Yeah, so I'm looking forward to that. Thanks, Hendrik. It was interesting, man. As always.
It's going to be, of course, that's going to be our first of 4 remaining sprint races as well in Belgium.
Oh, so, is it?
Yeah. So it's a lot to be looking forward to, and a lot to talk about next week.
Okay, cool. Awesome. Thank you. Appreciate it.
See you then.
The F1 Focus Podcast with Velman and Hendrik Verwoerd.